I want to start today with a concept that, frankly, it annoyed me when I first read it in the research stack. It felt completely backward.
Oh,
We spend all this time talking about health optimization, fitness, getting in shape, right? And usually the metric for that is getting smaller, seeing the number on the scale go down.
that is the traditional scorecard, yes. Less of me equals a better version of me.
Right. But then I open this literature from the Morrell Institute, and the very first thing that hits me is this claim. True transformation isn't about becoming smaller. And my immediate reaction was, well, hang on. For a lot of people, yes, it is.
I get that.
If I'm carrying 50 extra pounds, becoming smaller is exactly the point. So are they just trying to be contrarian here?
It does sound like a marketing tagline at first glance, doesn't it? But if you dig into the physiology they're presenting, they aren't saying weight loss is bad. They're arguing that if smaller is your only goal, you are likely setting yourself up for a structural collapse.
A structural collapse.
Think about it. If you focus strictly on reducing mass shrinking the object, without paying attention to the materials holding that object up, what happens?
Things fall apart.
You don't just get a smaller version of your youthful self, you get a structure that looks, and this is their specific phrasing, abrupt, depleted, and unintentionally aged.
Okay, that phrase, unintentionally aged, that one stings a bit.
Yeah.
Because we all see this, right? We see the headlines about Ozempic face.
Exactly.
We see people who drop 40 pounds in 3 months and suddenly they look 10 years older.
And that is the core of what we're diving into today. The topic is functional aesthetics. And I want you to shift your mindset for the next 20 minutes or so. Stop thinking about the body as a sculpture that you're just chipping away at with a chisel.
Okay.
Start thinking about it like a piece of architecture, a building. You cannot gut renovate a house by just tearing down the walls and hoping the roof stays up.
Yeah.
You have to understand the engineering.
I like the architecture analogy. It makes sense because I think a lot of us, when we start a health kick, we're just thinking about the paint color and, the curb appeal. We aren't thinking about the beams.
Precisely. And the Mirelle data breaks this renovation down into 4 pillars. You have the facade, which is the skin, the foundation, which is the muscle,
Okay.
the HVAC, or electrical systems, so the metabolism, and finally the stress test, which is hormones and hair. If you ignore one, the building fails.
So let's start with the facade, the skin, because this is where the looking older thing really hits home. I always assumed that if I lose fat in my face, that should be a good thing. I'd see my cheekbones again.
But the research here suggests that's a dangerous assumption.
Why?
It is. And to understand why, we have to stop demonizing fat, at least facial fat. In the world of structural engineering, fat or adipose tissue isn't just extra stuff, it's the scaffolding.
It's the stuff holding the drywall up.
Ideally, yes, we have these deep fat pads in the midface, the temples, and even in the body, thighs, arms. They provide the internal pressure that keeps the skin taut.
Right.
When you go on an aggressive metabolic drive, whether it's medication, crash dieting, or just intense training, that fat goes away.
And without the scaffolding.
The structural tension is gone. The tent collapses. The skin hasn't lost weight. The support under it has vanished. That's why you get that laxity or that creepy texture. It's not a skin problem initially, it's a volume problem.
So if I'm the listener and I'm looking in the mirror seeing this deflation,
Yeah.
the logical fix,
Yeah.
and what I think most people do, is just to fill it back up. You go get fillers. You pump the balloon back up.
That is the traditional patch job. You have a hole, you fill it with spackle. That's what hyaluronic acid fillers often do. They are space occupiers.
Okay.
But the Mirelle Institute is pushing a different approach here, something called functional aesthetics. They focus on a compound called poly-L-lactic acid, or PLLA. You might know it by the brand name Sculptra.
I've heard of it,
Yeah.
but isn't that just another filler?
No. And the distinction is critical if you want to understand the biology. PLLA isn't a space occupier. It's a biostimulator.
Okay, break that down for me. What is it actually stimulating?
Imagine you drill a hole in a wall and put a screw in. The wall doesn't change. That's a filler. Now imagine you inject a signal that tricks the wall into rebuilding itself.
Okay.
When PLLA is injected, the body detects these microparticles. It registers them as a very mild controlled injury or a foreign presence.
Wait, so we're intentionally annoying the body.
In a way, yes. It triggers a specific inflammatory cascade. This wakes up your fibroblasts, the cells responsible for building connective tissue. The body surrounds these PLLA particles with fresh, new collagen.
Neocollagenesis. I saw that term in the notes.
Exactly, neocollagenesis. New collagen creation. Over time, the PLLA particles dissolve and disappear, but they leave behind a reinforced network of your own structural protein.
So to go back to the house analogy, you weren't just shoving insulation into the wall. You're actually getting the house to grow new beams.
You're reinforcing the rebar in the concrete, and that's why the result looks different. The research describes it as elegance of contour. It doesn't look puffy or overfilled
Because it's your own tissue.
it's your own tissue. It's just structurally sound enough to drape correctly over your new, leaner frame.
That makes sense. You're fixing the structure while you do the renovation rather than waiting for the roof to cave in.
Right. But even the best walls will crack if the foundation is shifting. And that brings us to the second pillar, muscle.
Now, I feel like everyone knows they should keep muscle. It looks better. But the warning in this research was surprisingly dire. It called muscle loss the danger zone. Is that just because nobody wants to look skinny fat?
It's much, much more serious than aesthetics. Muscle is expensive tissue.
Expensive.
Metabolically expensive. Costs a lot of calories to keep muscle on your body. Fat is cheap. It just sits there. So when you start restricting calories, your body, which is obsessed with survival, looks at your muscle and says, this is a luxury item. We can't afford the upkeep.
And it starts breaking it down for fuel.
It does.
So you're burning the furniture to heat the house.
Correct. And here is why that is a catastrophe for longevity. Muscle is your primary glucose sink. It is the main place your body disposes of sugar. If you shrink your muscle mass, you are shrinking your engine.
Wow.
You might be lighter on the scale, but you have become metabolically fragile. You look smaller, but your internal machinery is actually weaker.
So how do we stop that? The text mentions a technology called AccuFit. But I have to ask, is this just a fancy way of saying go lift weights? Because, I can just go to the gym.
You should go to the gym, but there is a limitation to voluntary exercise. When you lift a weight, your brain sends a signal to your muscles to contract. But your brain is efficient. It only recruits the minimum amount of muscle fibers needed to lift that weight.
It's trying to save energy.
Exactly. It rarely fires 100% of the fibers. AccuFit uses electrical muscle stimulation, or EMS. It bypasses the brain entirely. It sends a direct electrical signal into the muscle belly, forcing a contraction that is often deeper and more complete than what you can do voluntarily.
So it's forcing the muscle to stay awake, to stay active.
It's forcing recruitment. It creates what's called supermaximal contractions. It's telling the body very clearly, we are using this tissue. Do not liquidate it.
It's like putting a under construction sign on the foundation so the demolition crew doesn't touch it.
That's a great way to put it. It maintains that structural integrity so that when the fat comes off, you look sculpted and intentional, not just reduced.
Okay, so we've reinforced the walls, which is the skin, and secured the foundation, the muscle. Now we have to talk about the systems running the house, the HVAC, the electricity, the metabolism.
The engine room.
Now, I have to be skeptical here for a second. The source material talks about a compound called Ignite plus F, and honestly, the name Ignite makes me think of those gas station pills that make your heart explode.
I know.
But you were adamant before we started recording that I was looking at this all wrong.
I was. Because words matter. Most fat burners on the market are just heavy stimulants. They jack up your heart rate and cortisol to force a calorie burn. It's stressful on the body. The Mirelle approach is about metabolic signaling.
Explain the difference. What is a signal in this context?
Think of your metabolism as a thermostat. A stimulant just hacks the thermometer to make it read hot. Signaling is about actually reprogramming the thermostat settings. You are sending chemical messengers to the cells to tell them how to handle energy.
Okay, give me an example. What's in this stuff that actually signals a cell?
Let's look at the master switch, AMPK.
AMPK sounds like a tech stock.
It stands for adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, but think of it as the low battery sensor on your phone.
Oh, okay.
When AMPK is activated, it tells the body, we need energy now, stop storing fat and start burning it. And most modern people who eat constantly, AMPK is perpetually turned off. We are always in storage mode.
So we're always charging the battery, never using it.
Right. Ingredients like actoponin and factor 21 are included specifically to flip that AMPK switch back on. They mimic the signal of caloric restriction without the starvation.
Okay, that's the switch. But the part that really blew my mind, and I need you to explain the science here because it sounds fake, is the browning of white fat.
It does sound like science fiction, but it's very real.
I thought fat was just fat.
Not at all. We have two main types. White fat is your pantry. It stores excess energy. It has very few mitochondria. Brown fat is your furnace. It is packed with mitochondria,
A little power plants in yourself.
little power plants, and its job is to generate heat by burning energy. Babies have a lot of brown fat to keep them warm. Adults, not so much.
We lose the furnace as we age.
Mostly. But we now know that white fat has plasticity. It can change. We can encourage beiging, turning white stolage fat into beige metabolically active fat.
You could basically renovate the pantry and turn it into a furnace room.
Yes. And specific compounds signal this transition. The research highlights grains of paradise, a spice relative of ginger, and something called LBIB. These provide the signal that triggers mitochondrial biogenesis within the fat cell,
Mitochondrial biogenesis.
growing new power plants inside the fat cell. So the fat cell stops being a storage unit and starts becoming an energy consumer.
That is wild. It's literally changing the job description of the cell.
It is, and that's why it's called functional aesthetics. You aren't just forcing weight loss, you are upregulating the metabolic function of the tissue itself.
There's one more component in this Ignite Plus formula that caught my eye, and it relates to the hardest part of any diet, being hungry.
The DNF10 peptide complex.
Right. Is this just an appetite suppressant? Is it just tricking my stomach?
It works on the hormonal level. So we have two main hunger hormones, ghrelin, which is the feed me hormone, and leptin, the I'm full hormone.
Got it.
When you lose weight, your body panics. It spikes ghrelin and crushes leptin. That's why you get those uncontrollable cravings. DNF10 helps modulate that signaling loop, keeping the feed me screams to a dull whisper.
So it's not overriding your will, it's just quieting the noise.
Exactly. It makes the body a cooperative partner rather than an enemy you have to fight.
Okay, so we've got the walls, the foundation, and the power grid sorted. But there is one final piece of this renovation that I think people often ignore until it's too late. And it's the most emotional part.
The hair.
The hair. I have a friend who went on a very popular weight loss injection, lost 50 pounds, looked great in clothes, and then she started crying in the shower because handfuls of hair were coming out.
Telogen effluvium?
Is that the technical term?
Yes, and it is a devastatingly common side effect of rapid metabolic shifts.
Why does the body do that? It feels like a betrayal. You're getting healthier, why is your hair falling out?
It feels like a betrayal, but it's actually a brutally efficient survival strategy.
Yeah.
You have to understand how your body prioritizes resources. Hair is biologically expensive to make. It's pure protein, and it is completely useless for keeping you alive.
Ouch.
I know. But if your body senses a sudden drop in calories or a shift in chemistry, it enters a wartime rationing mode. It looks at the budget and says, heart, essential, lungs, essential, hair, luxury item, cut the funding.
So it just fires the hair follicle.
It pushes them into the resting phase, the telogen phase. They stop growing, and then about 3 months later, they shed.
So how does the Mirelle approach prevent this? Because the text says hair preservation is not an afterthought.
It requires a systemic audit. You can't just take a biotin gummy and hope for the best. You have to check your iron stores, specifically ferritin. You need to check zinc, B vitamins, and crucially, protein intake. If you aren't eating enough protein, you cannot build hair.
And hormones play a role here too, right?
A huge role. Thyroid function often slows down during weight loss, again, to save energy. And sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone drive follicular health. If you crash your hormones, you crash your hair.
So the functional approach means you are monitoring these blood markers while you treat the metabolism, not after the damage is done.
It's checking the roof for leaks before the storm hits.
Exactly.
You know, listening to all this, the skin scaffolding, the muscle engine, the metabolic switches, the hormonal audits, it really highlights a problem with how we usually approach this stuff.
How so?
We usually pick one. I'm going to diet, or I'm going to get Botox, or I'm going to lift weights. We fragment the body.
And the research calls this the false choice.
The false choice is you can be lean, or you can look youthful, you can have a fast metabolism, or you can have healthy hair. We've accepted that we have to trade one for the other.
I look great in jeans, but my face looks haggard.
Exactly. The philosophy of functional aesthetics is a refusal of that choice. It argues that if you support the structure with something like Sculptra, preserve the foundation with AccuFit, and tune the engine with Ignite, plus all at the same time, you don't have to make that trade.
It brings me back to that quote from the beginning. The results shouldn't announce themselves.
Effortless, intentional, and well-supported. You shouldn't look like you just survived a famine. You should look like you've been renovated by a master architect.
So for the listener who is maybe standing at the beginning of a health journey or maybe in the middle of one and feeling that deflation, what's the takeaway here?
The takeaway is begin with intention. Don't wait until the skin is sagging or the hair is clogging the drain to think about structure. Prevention is infinitely easier than correction.
Right.
Even if you aren't using these specific treatments, the mindset shift is key. You are not just reducing a number, you are managing a complex biological building.
Treat the body like a house. Don't strip the walls down to the studs without checking if the beams can hold the roof.
And don't sell the furniture to pay the heating bill.
Exactly. Keep the muscle.
Keep the muscle.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. It's a lot to chew on, but hopefully it changes the way you look at the next few months of your own health journey. It's not about shrinking, it's about engineering. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.